Our program tonight is going to be given by Erika Broenner. She is the historian for the Verdin Company. It's a company that's been around for over 180 years, and they have several installations in the Delhi area. I think I may have gone too fast, sorry. Let me get my notes. So several of those installations include, you'll see the bell at Glenway Crossing. It's the skyline on Glenway, St. Antoninus, St. Dominic, St. Martin and Cheviot. Also the bell at the new St. Joseph Cemetery, St. Teresa of Avila, and both Victory and Visitation and the Green Township Administration Building. And Erika was offered a job. She was doing genealogy, and the Verdin Company offered her a job as their historian. So I'm really interested to hear about that part of her story. Without further ado, I will introduce Erika Broenner. Erika, if you want to come on up, and she's going to entertain us with all things bells.
So my name is Erika Broenner. I work for the Verdin Company. I am in my 11th year of working there. I started in 2013. I did not have any background, any training, anything in sales or marketing. I went there to do genealogy because my husband is a direct descendant of the original founder of the company, and so I wanted to fill in some holes that my in-laws didn't have answers to. And so I got down there and I spent about 2 hours talking to these people, and then about 3 months later they called me and they said, we have a project we want to do. Would you like to come help us with it? Which turned out to be this lovely coffee table book that is about the history of the company. So I spent 3 months making this book, put that together, called me back in the summer and said, we need to come back and do some updates to it. Sure, came back and did that. Called me a couple months later, said, we have a job opening, you want to come work here? Why not? Spent pretty much most of the year down there, so I might as well keep going. So, but prior to that I worked as a police dispatcher for 14 years, so big change of lifestyle for me for sure, but it's been a lot of fun. And as I've spent my time there, I've learned pretty much everything that I can about how it runs and who the people are. And the best part is right now, like the current owners, they'll say, hey, we know about so-and-so, but how are we related to them? And I'm like, hold on, I got an app for that. You know, pull my phone up and we look. So it's a lot of fun, but I enjoy it. So the Verdin Company was started in 1842. So we're at 182 years this year for our celebration. We did a big celebration a few years back for our 175th, and so you'll see some of the bell work that we did for that later. But we started off as a two-man company, and right now I think total we have about 100 employees, and that goes nationwide. So the majority of them are here in Cincinnati, but we do have sales reps and service techs that are scattered all over the country, and so they cover different areas. So we can basically do it. And then we have one guy that's running all of Canada. So, you know, but we can ship anywhere in the world. And we have installations. We did a beautiful street clock about 6 years ago that went to Estonia, and it's gorgeous over there. So, whatever somebody wants, we pretty much can come up with it. So, I have a fun little slide just because it's Delhi. I am not a Delhi resident, but I am a descendant of many, many people from Delhi. So I did this for fun because if you can find a name up there that you know, we're related. See? So if your name goes anywhere in there, or a family member, then you know that I am part of that and you are part of that. So, but I have this ginormous family from the west side, and so we're over here for everything. So, and most of them are from Our Lady of Victory. So, but I just thought that would be fun to kind of point out like how many connections I have, Sailor Park and Delhi. All right. So the Verdin Company headquarters are in over the Rhine. They've been there since 1981. We originally started down on Central and Vine. The building is no longer there. It is a parking garage, but it's kind of right by the Kroger building, if you know where it is, but it would be on the northern side of the canal. So they started there. They had a little one-room, two-room shop. It was two brothers that started it, and so then eventually they moved around different parts of the city. But since 1981, we've been headquartered at Old St. Paul's, which is right by the casino. So our offices are in the boys' school building. The Bell Event Center is currently in the church. We have our factory is on Kellogg, which is the one on the bottom. And then the building on the top is our factory that we had from like the 1960s until 2011. We still use it. It's on Eastern. We use it a lot of times for our bigger projects that we need to kind of store out of the way until we can get them shipped to where they need to go so that we can keep manufacturing going. So those are our three locations that we travel back and forth between. I know it's really small and you can't read that, but this just kind of shows you their milestones, their company milestones. So it gives you an idea of how many things that we have done and competitors that have gone out of business and that we've taken on their business and kept on with them. And we've created certain things like introducing the very first automatic bell ringer or automatic winders for clocks, or creating the world's largest swinging bell, which is the World Peace Bell, and just different steps as we've gone along and things that we've accomplished. And so the fact that I have to shrink it into teeny tiny print shows the amount of things that we've done. So I'm going to turn this a little bit. After 6 generations, the Verdin Company is one of the oldest family-owned companies in the United States, as well as Ohio. It's the oldest tower clock manufacturer in the U.S. We invented the continuous winder for tower clocks in 1910, invented the first electronic bell ringer in 1927. Prior to that, everything had to be run by hand. We developed a multi-track audio tape deck to automatically play the sound of bells from a bell tower, so bells on speakers in 1947. World Peace Bell in 2000. We have designed and built the world's only bell foundry on wheels, and you'll see that later, but essentially it's a traveling bell foundry. Nobody else has done that. Everybody else stays in their factory. We have figured out a way to take the foundry and the factory to you. Designed and built the nation's only veterans tribute towers, and designed and built clock-related art projects in the world's largest foot piano with tubular chimes, which is down there at Smale Park. So just kind of shows you some of the things that we've taken on in our 182 years. So the Verdin family comes from Marlinheim, France. There were 8 kids. 5 of them came to Cincinnati in 1830. One of them married and went back to France, and those relatives still live there. So these pictures that you see here, that's their homestead, their church in their town. They own a vineyard over there. So those 2 bottom pictures are how the brick was damaged, where it would say Verdin. We replaced it with a brand new brick to mark their vineyard. That's their family plot and their cemetery, so they're well documented in Marlinheim over there. So several years ago, they went back there to meet all of them, to travel around and get to know those relatives themselves. And I think actually one of our guys is actually going to go back over there this summer or fall for the same thing. They're going to go visit them again. So the 2 original brothers are Francis de Sales and Michael Verdin. They started the company on Vine Street and over the Rhine. Their very first installation that's documented is Old St. Mary's Church. So if you know where that is, down there on 13th and Clay, we put the clock in there in 1842. They came here a little before that, probably about 5 years before that. However, we can't document anything prior to that. We know that they were working. We know that they had a business. We know that they traveled back and forth between Cincinnati and Yorkville, Indiana. They had some property out there because a lot of them are buried in St. Martin's Church out that way. And so we know there was a lot of back and forth on that, but there is no documentation of any business prior to 1842, and you'll see why later. But this is the first one that we can document. So that's how we established the starting point of our business. If we had to guess, it probably actually started in about 1838, but we'll go with 1842. It works. Sounds better. This kind of just gives you an idea of where we were located. The little red stars show where the building was. But in 1842, the United States was 66 years old. John Tyler was the 10th president. Chicago had only been in existence for 5 years and had a population of 7,500 people. California was not a state. There was no Los Angeles. Orlando was settled by pioneers. Professional baseball didn't exist. The Citadel, as well as the University of Notre Dame, were both established the same year. St. Andrews Royal and Ancient Golf Club is only, 88 years old. U.S. Golf Association didn't exist. There were no jeans, so no Levi Strauss. There was no Sears. There was no Kroger. You didn't have a grocery store. And Procter & Gamble had only been in business for 5 years by the time we started. So kind of, we've been around for a lot longer than most people think we have. So, but it's good. This is our documentation for how the business was started, or the date basically. This is the Ohio, if you know what the Ohio Mechanics Institute is, it eventually became part of UC, but it was down there where the Emory Theater is, right across from Kroger. Yeah. It's right down there on Central Parkway. And so the Ohio Mechanics Institute in 1841 gave the two brothers an award for their work on tower clocks, saying that the changes that they had made to how the current clocks worked were extraordinary, and so they granted them an award. And then that setup from that exhibit is what went into Old St. Mary's. And so that is yes, in 1841 we know we were working, but we didn't install anything officially until 1842. But that just proves that they've been around that long. So, second generation, is Francis DeSale's son. Michael did not have any kids, so when he passed away, the business obviously continues down the one line. Francis's son is Aloysius Nicholas Verdin. We call him A.N. They use big names all along. Company was located on Pearl Street at this point. So if you know where Pearl Street was, that's kind of down where the stadiums, Coliseum, along the riverfront there. It doesn't exist any longer, but it was in that general area. A.N. was quite the inventor. He loved to tinker with everything that he could. He invented time lock safe mechanisms and all kinds of stuff for bell ringing. And if you go through the U.S. Patent Office, there's like a list of things that are done by him and some of his coworkers. So he married. They had several children, and this is where my genealogy research got me, because the one lady, see if my little laser pointer thing, it's probably not gonna work. Let me go around. This one right here, that's my husband's great grandma.
Oh, wow. All right.
And she is sister to this guy here, so his family inherits the company. So that's where my father-in-law says to me, he goes, you gotta go find out why she didn't get anything. And I said, well, probably because she's a girl, and there's only 2 boys, and I'm thinking that's it. So
The oldest got it.
the oldest boy got it all. Yeah. So, but that is what led me down there, was to find out why the family kind of separated off, because as time went on, they could have kept in contact, but why not? It was a lot of fun to try to find this out. So, but that is Cecilia Verdin, is my husband's great-grandmother. and it's her brother who takes over eventually.
What's his name?
We'll get there. AN installed a clock in St. Ferdinand Church in Ferdinand, Indiana in 1865. That is the clock mechanism that he put in 1865. That is what is still running their clock today. We will not take that out. We took the one out of Old St. Mary's in the 1960s and replaced it with more modern mechanisms. We kept the mechanism. It's in our offices. This one we're leaving. We do everything we can to keep that running because it's just showing the longevity of what he did. So, but he and his son invented the electronic winder for clocks. So if you know how clocks used to run on a weight-driven system, you'd have pulleys and they'd go, it'd be about 8 days, you'd have to wind it, and then the pulleys would move the opposite direction and it would keep running your clock. Well, that got to be too much, so he said there's got to be a way that we can make this go on its own, and so that's what they did. They invented a non-weight driven mechanism, and so therefore that is what's running out there. So I told you AN was an inventor. He also liked to dabble into everything else that he could, so he decided that having one business wasn't enough. He started a side business with a couple of his cousins, and so they started this other company called Verdin Co, and they made all kinds of machinery and punch presses, and thank God that they did, because this company is what got our company through the war effort. If that didn't exist, we would have gone the wayside of everybody else.
Wow.
So, because during the war you couldn't get your metal and materials and things that you needed for extraneous stuff, but you could get it if you were running a company that made punch presses to make machinery for the war effort. And so therefore, that's what kept them afloat. So this just kind of shows some of the other things, some advertisements, things that they did. We found one of these machines several years ago on eBay. So we bought it, and it's in storage in one of our buildings now. So, but there you can see that's the extent of their company, just that small group of people up there. So the fact that they have realized early on, you can't just focus in one place, you have to keep moving forward. So third generation is innocent Theophilus. He's IT. It's a lot easier. He is my husband's great-grandmother's brother. He's the one that takes over after his father passes away, and it is his descendants that have continued the company on since then. I found out through my little genealogy research that there's some questions about what the will said and who got what and this and that, and that's what separated everybody. And so when I got this job and I started talking to the current owners at the time, I said, this is what my father-in-law's family was told, and he goes, oh, well, this is what we were told. And then we realized that nobody really knew the whole story, and so they kind of put things, aside and said, that was, why is anybody angry at each other? We shouldn't be. So we've kind of put it back together. So it's nice. But IT took the company forward. He invented the electronic bell ringer. So prior to 1927, all bells had to be rung by hand. You had to have a kid go up in the tower. You had to have father pull the bell rope. You had to have whatever it was. Somebody's got to go up there and do it. And he said there has got to be a better way than somebody getting up in the middle of the night or whatever it is to go ring a bell. So he came up with a machine, and like his father, he was, an inventor. He's got a list of patents in the patent office as well. So, but if you notice here in the top picture on the right, those are our offices on Broadway. We moved from Pearl Street up about a block to 123 Broadway. Well, it's not there anymore either, and it got pretty much ruined in the flood. That was the end of everything prior to 1937. If we have any documentation, it is few and far between. I did find some papers the other day from about 1934 when I was looking through a file, but everything prior to this is gone. There is no documentation from the very beginning. So, and I did find a letter a couple years ago when we were working on a project where they said that the water got to the second floor of that building and they were rowing rowboats in the windows to get out what they could and try to save it, and it wasn't a whole lot. So, but that is why. So we have quite a few people who will call and say, oh, we have a Verdin bell, we know it's before, blah, blah, blah. I have no way to document anything. I don't have any details on it because that's all gone, other than a few small pieces of paper here and there. So this is his electronic bell ringer. So today it's a lot smaller than this, but this is what was invented in 1927. The picture on the left is the actual bell and equipment that was pulled out of St. George's in Clifton when the church closed, and so we took that out of there. But you can see that the bell would sit up on a deck on the A stands, and all the machinery runs below it. Everything's got pulleys and cables and whatnot, and each machine, one is an Angelus ringer, one is a toller. There's a time clock that would run it. You would insert little pins into the clock so it would know when it was supposed to go off and when it was supposed to make it do things. And all of that machinery would make your bell ring. One bell, you need all that for one. If you have four, you got to do all that for four. So, or you have one that does the majority of things, and some of them, the other bells wouldn't get as many things. They would get maybe just the swinger. So it was a lot of equipment to put into the tower. It was expensive too, and so many times you would still find churches who decided to keep their bell rope rung, but if they did electrify it and do this, if they had 4 bells, they might only electrify one due to the cost of it, and then eventually as time would go on, they would do the rest. 4th generation brings you to the 3 sons of IT. So you have Robert, Ralph, and Forrest. They took over when their father passed away. At this point, we had moved the factory then up to Dandridge. This building also no longer exists. It would be right around where Reading and Liberty come together. And when they widened Liberty Street, this building went. But it's the one that's in the top corner there. They purchased that in 1951 when they moved up there. So, tiny little factory. They ran out of room and eventually moved to the building that's on Eastern, which is the one down below. And they were in there from the 1960s until 2011. So, 5th generation takes over from their fathers. So now you have 3 cousins running it. This is going to be Bob Jr., Dave, and Jim. These are the 3 guys that I started working with. They were quite the crew. Sadly, all 3 of them have passed away since I started working there, but they were a lot of fun, and they had stories, and stories, and stories, and stories, and a lot of times the same stories, but but they were good. They were a lot of fun. They took the company a lot further than their fathers ever could have imagined. Their dads were able to do things with pickup trucks and go across most of the country into different areas, but these guys took it global. They're the ones that started moving everything across into Canada and to Mexico and into Europe and trying to install into other places, and they, just dream big and do what we can, and they did a wonderful job of it. So they were quite the innovators. The Smale Park foot piano, that's their design. The 3 of them came up with that. So I remember it being presented during a Christmas party. They said, okay, this is what we're going to build next year. And we all kind of looked at each other and went, you gotta be kidding me. It worked out. It's down there. It's really neat. So 6th generation is your current company owners. This is going to be the kids of Dave, Bob, and Jim. So now you have Bob III, you have Jill, and you have Tim Verdin. Tim's brother worked with us for a while. Bob's son Bo worked with us for a while. His other son Peter is working with us now, so we have 7th generation in-house. So it's continued. Jill's daughters have both interned there. So they continue to make sure, and I'm sure once Tim's kids are old enough, they'll start down there too. So, but they are the 3 that I am working with today. So I'm gonna do a video here. We're gonna hope that this works okay. If so, this is gonna show you about manufacturing.
Box here. Everything is made in-house. All of our hands are cut in here. We're actually the oldest family-owned manufacturing company in the state of Ohio, and we're the 51st oldest family-owned in the country. This will move just a little, Jim. Well, we were founded in 1842. Like I say, I'm the 6th generation. Yeah, you're right there. At first, we were clockmakers. As the story goes, with us being in the tower working on the clocks, for years and years, we, got started into the bells. Get a little close over here. There's extra metal on the surface of the bell that we're grinding off, and that's what he's doing right now. And then after the rough grinding's done, he'll put it on the polisher. We developed the first electric bell ringer. We have actually the world's only traveling bell foundry where we can take 2 semi-trucks to any location in the country and cast a bell on site. And now recently we've come out with what we call an electronic swinger, which doesn't have any moving parts. It's all digital information that makes the bell swing. You can change how fast it swings or how high it swings just with the push of a button. This is going to be a little tower that'll go on to a little church down in South Carolina. The bell set in there, so they'll actually pull the bell with a rope to make it swing and ring. The church wanted to be able to have something that other people could participate in. They wanted to get back to the old days when the kids were ringing the bell with the rope. And not only will they have the functional bell that people can, kind of take part in, but they'll also have, kind of a landmark there for forever for the church. We're doing here is a fiberglass layup to one of our street clocks. We do all of our own fiberglass layup here. We have all of our own molds. The product we're selling is actually built by us. So we want as much detail, like especially down in the base of this thing, all the ridges and the decorative part of the mold. Most of the competition is importing a close to finished product from either Mexico or from Europe, and basically they're acting as a warehouse where the finished product comes in, they put their name on it with a sticker or whether it be paint, and then they're shipping it to the customer. Verdin is exactly the opposite. Aisles are silk screened. Hands, all of our hands are cut in here from the very conceptual drawings or the very first phone call that's made with the customer all the way to the installation and even servicing our units through the years. It's always a Verdin person that's touching the product. Back when clocks were being installed in this country, in the courthouses and the universities and the churches, it was the way that the townspeople kept time. When you knew it was time to go to school and when you knew it was time to eat dinner or eat lunch, time to go to work. With technology being the way it is, nobody even wears watches anymore because you have a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone, they can tell what time it is. Clocks now are more of it's a piece of art or a piece of signage or a piece of decoration that may go in the city square. There's bells and clocks obviously everywhere, and it makes me proud knowing that most of the bells and clocks in this country, if it's not a Verdin product, we've at least worked on it. And it's neat to be able to go through the files and see letters that my grandfather wrote back in the 40s and 50s. I hear the current owners who are not young talk about seeing letters that their grandfathers wrote. It's just amazing how they were able to actually run a business with handwritten notes and telegraphs or whatever. Knowing that we've been in business for as long as what we have, and we went through so many generations of Verdin, with it being in the family, the bar set pretty high for us at this point to keep the party going. So we won't stop until all the cities in the country have street clocks. None of the seventh generation are old enough yet to know really what they want to do, but we'll see if they want to be involved with the company. I'm sure we'll let them.
That's Tim Verdin. He's our current president. He's in charge of manufacturing, so he runs the factory down there. But one of the things I wanted to point out in that video, it's a little prior to, we no longer make clocks out of fiberglass. We used to. The posts were always aluminum, the clock heads were fiberglass. We did everything in-house. As times have changed, COVID's made a difference to things. You can't find people that can throw fiberglass any longer. And so we have moved and made everything out of aluminum now. So the clock head itself is made out of aluminum as well as the post. But we found out that it works. It makes a big difference. It seems to be lasting longer. It's not as easily damaged as fiberglass can be, and it's still keeping everything good. So, but I also wanted to point out too, this is the best way for us to show you how the factory works. It's loud. It's a lot down there. It's dirty, and so we try not to we bring customers in there if we need to, if they want to see what's going on, but we no longer offer tours. It's just not conducive because we have to stop what we're doing in order for everybody to come through there. So that's one of the biggest questions that I get asked usually is if we still give tours, and we do not. So as Tim said, we started off as clock manufacturers. They were iron forgers in France. They came over here after learning how to work on clocks, and then they continued and then learning to work on bells as they were in the towers. So tower clock manufacturing has been our bread and butter since the very beginning. This kind of gives you an idea of how things have changed over time, how mechanisms have changed. Those are some of the older pictures from the 50s and 60s advertisements that we have. But you can see like we've done the clock at Withrow. The one down there at the bottom is New Bern City Hall. But that's been our business ever since, has always been tower clocks. So they all come in all different shapes and sizes and looks. You can do a canister clock, you can do what they call a skeleton dial, you can have just a couple of tick marks. We can, however you want it to look, we'll find a way to make it fit that. So some of them are recessed in, some of them sit flush to the building. But this just gives you an idea of some of the products that we've done. You can also be a little creative with tower clocks. So the one up here on the top right, this is in Manhattan. This is outside of the Hilton, I believe. The Star Bank one, that used to be in Shoemaker Center at UC before they redid the whole thing in there. So that's all been taken over. I don't even think it's called Shoemaker anymore. But the one on the far side over there on the left, that's Two Trees in Brooklyn. That's an apartment building. And they have 4 faces of a clock as their windows of their apartment building. So it's kind of cool. We have to go up there, once a year or every other year and do some maintenance and make it, make sure everything's up and running. But I think there's one other installation like that somewhere here in the United States that we've done the same thing where it's been converted to an apartment and those are their windows. One on the bottom left is a clock in a floor in a jewelry store. So you walk in the door and you step over top of that.
Wow.
But the one here on the bottom right, this is in Lexington, Kentucky, and that is the library down there.
Wow.
And if you are looking up at their ceiling in their rotunda, and the hands are in that white space of their window. What the heck am I thinking of? You know what I mean? Solar light. And ceiling, yeah, and so the hands go around. You can see dial of the clock, and I have not been down there myself, but my understanding is it casts the shadow, so you can see it on the ground too, and tell what time it is.
Wow.
So, what do you got here? We, a couple of years ago, did the restoration of the clock at Union Terminal. So there's a quick video here to show you how that all came apart and how we put that back together.
The glowing silhouette of Union Terminal is unmistakable, punctuated by the red hands of its iconic clock. Given its prominence both day and night, the repair of Union Terminal's clock is as aesthetically important as it is historically significant. The construction of the clock almost resembles an illuminated moving window. The face measures 18 feet across and is composed of 28 amber glass panels of varying sizes and 24 red glass panels to demarcate the 12-hour positions. Each glass panel is set in an aluminum frame, much like the rows of windows on the rotunda face behind it. That aluminum has been carefully cleaned using soda blasting, trading abrasive sand for softer sodium bicarbonate that won't damage the soft metal. A similar process was used to clean the hands of the clock. The aluminum hands measure over 6 and 7 feet long and weigh over 150 pounds each. The red and white paint has been stripped away in favor of a satin aluminum finish, returning them to the way they appeared when the building opened in 1933. Once the hands had been restored, they were carefully fitted with new neon tubes along their edges. The neon was custom crafted by Neon Works of Cincinnati. Glass tubes are heated to give them flexibility, then bent into the desired shape. A rubber tube connects the glass to a mouthpiece through which the craftsman can blow air to keep the tube from collapsing when it is bent. The tubes are then filled with neon gas, which glows when an electric current is sent through the tube. Though the glass tubes are new, their red neon glow will be instantly familiar to generations of Cincinnatians. The cleaned and repaired hands were then taken to the Verdin Co, where the clock mechanism, gears, drive motor, and timer switch that turn the hands and operate the clock were repaired. The mechanism was labeled and removed piece by piece, and then cleaned, repaired, and reassembled at Verdin's workshop. The hands were attached to the mechanism for balancing to ensure that once the clock is reassembled on the face of Union Terminal, it will faithfully keep time for decades to come. Just as the clock was removed piece by piece, each gear, counterweight, and chain came back piece by piece. Technicians from Verdin carried over 1,000 pounds of clock up several flights of stairs to the clock room, with the help of construction crew members. There, the clock was reassembled. With the internal mechanism meticulously reassembled, the hands were carefully lifted to be reattached. The final step was attaching the delicate neon tubes that outline each hand. After more than a year of cleaning, repairs, and upgrades, Union Terminal's clock will once again keep time, ticking through another 85 years of memories made in this National Historic Landmark.
I heard that was one of the hottest, most confining jobs. There's not a whole lot of room up there to maneuver, and yet everything, there's no elevator, so it all has to go by stairs. So if you saw them hauling that up there, it took a lot of work to get that up there, but it was good. It was well worth it.
So what year was that they would restore it?
It was pre-COVID because we did, is that 18? I think that was 18 because then in 19, when they did their 1940s day, we went down there to set up a table and show that video and some of our items that we had from doing the restoration on that clock. So I'm pretty sure that it was 18 is when they did the restoration, somewhere right around there. So cast bronze bells and carillons are other big ticket item that we work on, obviously. Bells are made of bronze. They can be made of different materials, but anything that you're going to find in a church is usually made out of bronze, which is going to be 80% copper and 20% tin. It gives you, that combination gives you the best sound, it gives you the best stability. If a bell is cast correctly, it will last a lifetime. So you can put it, once you put it up in a tower, if somebody's maintaining it, it'll stay there forever. So this gives you a look at some large carillons that we've done. A chime of bells is 9 to 14 bells, and then a carillon is 23 bells and above. So it depends on how you want to use it as a musical instrument, the number of bells that you need. We're actually working on a project right now that includes 52, I think it's 52 bells, 52 or 58 that are going out west. So it depends on what you want it to do and how many bells you want to have in there, but they can set it up for any set. Top one is Presbyterian Church in Pennsylvania. This one over here is Christ Church Cathedral downtown.
Oh, wow.
So we are not the only bell foundry, and we were not the only bell foundry. There were a lot in the United States, but World War II kind of set everybody off, and that is what became the end of a lot of them. I told you the only reason that we made it through is because we had a separate company running up at the same time to do other things. 90% of those companies right there closed because of the war effort. So the biggest one, though, is up on the left. That's Buckeye, which was here in Cincinnati. It's also known as Coffin. It's also known as Van Dusen. It's known as Tift, Van Dusen and Tift, Coffin and Tift. Whatever combination you want it to be, they're all Buckeye Bell. It just depended on who owned it at the time. They were also down on Pearl Street. Their facilities were right near ours, maybe about a block or so away. We worked in conjunction with them. So we did not make bells in 1842. They made bells. We put their stuff in the tower. We put our ringing equipment up there, and we helped them work on it. But they made the bells. When they closed in 1955, we purchased their assets, and I have 3 wonderful handwritten books that go from 1871 to 1932, 20, yeah, something like that, that document all of Buckeye Bell's installations in those times. So, like, Our Lady of Victory's bells are in there, St. Aloysius down the river, their bells are in there. So I can find the original entry of when those bells were made, who purchased them at the church or the community, how much they were at that time. So, you know, $100, $50, $400, crazy prices. But it's been wonderful because we'll get calls from from churches who will say, we have a Buckeye bell. Great, can you tell me what year it is? Do you have any idea what's on the bell? If it fits in that time frame, I can go find that and take a picture of that page for them and send it to them. So, but Meneely was another big one. They were up in New York. They actually split into 2 different companies. You had Meneely Troy and Meneely West Troy. 2 brothers who were running a company together. One decided he didn't want to work with the other, so he took his company across the river, literally could look at each other back and forth from their factories, and started a whole nother business. But when they closed in the 1950s, we also purchased their assets. So when we started making bells, we made them to look like Meneely's bells because they're quite almost a perfect example of what they should look like, and they do a really, really good job. They also were a company that we worked with at different times. They would provide the bell, and I can find telegrams from the 40s that are in files that'll say, you know, we'll ship it here, you get it to this point, you know, you guys install this, blah, blah, blah. And they did everything back and forth between them. So even though they were our competition for a lot of things, we figured out how to work with them as well. You had Stucksteady was out in St. Louis. There were 2 versions of that. You had Henry Stucksteady and then St. Louis Bell Foundry by Stucksteady. There was steel bell companies for cast iron, so you had CS Bell out in Hillsboro, you had Blymer Bells down in Camp Washington. McShane was out in Baltimore. Van Bergen was a big one. They came here from Holland, and they had a bell foundry there. They decided to start one here in South Carolina. We ended up purchasing that. In the late 90s, I think we took them over and worked with their owner for several years before he retired. So it wasn't just always us, there were a lot, but now it's us and a couple of small independent bell makers, and that's it. Otherwise you gotta go to Europe. So it just goes to show, like, 6 generations going on to 7, you have to figure out how to keep things running. Just isn't, you know, just because you've been in business for 100 years doesn't mean it's going to stay there. So they've done really well over time, keeping things moving forward and innovating new ways to do things. These are some examples of some bells that we've done or worked on. The Peru bell for Peru, Illinois just shows you how decorative you can get with a bell, different things you can put on it. The top one there is just an example that's Trinity Cove in Naples. Just a simple bell, but it's still decorative, but doesn't have a whole lot on it. The top right is a Paul Revere bell that we restored. That one was cast by Revere. We did not take the patina off of that. If we were to polish that, it would look exactly like the one that's to the left of it, and we chose not to. The customer chose not to. They wanted to leave it as is. The only thing that we did was put a new wood yoke on it and new bolts to hold it and put it back up in the tower with new ringing equipment. But otherwise, that was cast in, after the Revolution. So, once you cast a bell, as long as it's done right, it's going to stick around. Bottom one, though, that's at Hershey, Pennsylvania, and that's a Hershey Kiss.
Yes.
And if you look, you can just kind of see the little flag coming off of it, too. But I remember getting the call for that that job. I took the phone call that day, and I was talking to the lady, and she says, now we were at Hershey Park, and I said, okay, and she says, and we want to make a bell that looks like a Hershey Kiss. And I said, seriously? She said, yeah, can you do it? And I'm like, probably. We'll figure it out. And we did. That was a lot of fun to watch that one and see that one go in. So, but it does ring. I don't know how often they ring it, but it does ring up there. So. We have done some other commemorative bells here. The one on the bottom over there is for the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower. We cast that one on site up there in Plymouth, and it is now on their replica Mayflower ship that's up there. The bottom right we did for the 200th anniversary of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. So I went with my boss, Bob. We took that down to the Archbishop and presented that to him a couple years ago, so that was really cool. It sits in the cathedral now. And then the top is the New York Stock Exchange. They needed a new bell for their everyday ringing to open the floor and to close the day, and so they contacted us, and we made them 2 bells, and so that they have a backup in case something goes wrong with the other one. And I think they just actually reached out to us not too long ago to come and do some work on it. So, but yeah, we're at the New York Stock Exchange every day. So this is Big Joe. If you've lived here your entire life, everybody knows about this bell. If you don't know about this bell, here's your quick history on this. This is in St. Francis of Sales Church in East Walnut Hills. This is the largest swinging bell to date that was cast in the United States. It is, I gotta read this one, 35,000 pounds, which is 17.5 tons. It's 7 feet in diameter. It was cast on October 30th, 1895 by Van Dusen, which would be Buckeye. Is the largest swinging bell ever cast in the United States. It took 41 minutes to pour the bronze. It cost between $12,000 and $15,000 back then.
Wow.
Not happening today. And it swung one time before they said never again.
Really?
Yeah. So if you can kind of see how big that is, like this, they had to haul it up Gilbert Avenue using, it's 14 horses, I think. It goes up the side of the building on pulleys. People are standing on that bell as it gets pulled up the side of the tower. That picture kills me. But this is it coming out of the factory down here, out of Van Dusen. The clapper on that weighs 640 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
So you can see it kind of sitting up against the bell there. So they get this thing, they haul it all the way up Gilbert Avenue from the riverfront. They get it up there, they put it up in the tower. The tower's not finished. So they slide it in, take a couple more weeks, they brick up the tower, and they're like, all right, we're going to dedicate it, we're going to ring this thing. They get it moving enough, it takes a lot of effort to get it going, and the clapper finally hits, and windows shatter all over the place in East Walnut Hills. And as the bell is swinging up in the tower goes like this. And they're like, that's it, we're done. So they never rang it. They would figure out a way to go up there, and they were either hitting it from inside or doing something else. But eventually, we put a striker on that. So it is a hammer that hits it from the outside every day. The bell has its original wood wheel up there. It's still as it was from 1895, but it does not move. If it does, that tower's coming down. There's just no way. It's too much weight for up there, and they didn't, nobody knew it back then how it was going to work. But it gets struck every day. They're actually redoing the tower right now. I think they have a rededication in July. They're doing a lot of work to it. And so they asked us if we have the clapper, like the 640-pound clapper, we took it out. We have it in our storage. They asked us if we would bring it up there and put it on display. And I'm like, well, how are we going to do 640 pounds? So we're trying to figure out how to do that for them so they can have it up there for their celebration. But it's going to take several people to get that off of a truck. So, but that is the largest swinging bell cast in the United States. So then we decided, well, since we didn't make it, but we maintain the largest swinging one in the United States, why don't we go ahead and make the largest swinging bell ever? And so you have the World Peace Bell. So they decided, they had a guy come to us, he came up with this idea. He says, I want to, work on this project. We're going to put it in Newport. It's going to be the World Peace Bell. It's going to have like 30 other bells that go with it. It never got to the 30 other bells. It only stayed at this one because the project did not have enough funding. So that's why there's only one. But we said, sure, we'll take this on. We don't have the space to cast this. Nobody in the United States has the space to cast this. So they started looking around, trying to figure out what they were going to do. And they went over to the foundries that are in Europe, and all the bell founders over there said, we don't have the space to make this. So they found a company that makes ship propellers, like for cruise ships and battleships and things like that. They made the bell because their facilities are large enough to do that. So we found a company in France. We got them all of the materials, made the molds, did all that kind of stuff, and then they cast the bell over there. So the World Peace Bell is 66,000 pounds versus 35,000 pounds for Big Joe. But in order to cast a bell of 66,000 pounds, you have to have 100,000 pounds of bronze to do it. So we had to get all of that material over there. But this one took, what's it say? 5 minutes. Yeah, I can't read it, Mom. It's too small. So it took 5 minutes to make it versus 41 minutes to make the one several years before that. So this was put then on a ship, brought across the Atlantic, down around Florida, up into the Gulf of Mexico, taken off of a ship, put onto a barge. The barge brings it all the way up the Mississippi and then up the Ohio. They got it to Newport. They had to have 2 cranes take it off, put it on a truck, take it up the street, 2 more cranes, take it off the truck, and put it in its tower that it sits in today. So it rings, it does swing, it does not shatter windows, but it does swing. I don't know what their schedule is anymore for how often they do that or turn it on, but it is usable, and there's talk right now of it actually possibly moving to a different location. So
They said that they are going to definitely do it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so now we have to figure out how to get it back down and put it somewhere else. So watch for trucks and cranes. But this bottom one over here shows it in France on the ship as it's being loaded and ready to go. And so different stops along the way as it made it through New Orleans and such. So the other thing that we can do is what you call an electronic carillon. It sounds like a real bell, but it's not. Maybe it's real, maybe it's Memorex, right?
Right.
So we started off with what you would basically have as a record player with a clock. That's the one on the left. They had 8-track tapes, they had audio cards, they had Palm Pilots, They've moved into digital, but over the years it's changed. But we had a full set of bells, and they had them in the factory, and they went and struck each single note and recorded it. And then that is what still plays today. So they're not samples, they are actual real bells that were recorded. And so when you play them, nobody knows that you are running those through speakers. Carillons are a great alternative because they're cost effective, or your church or your community doesn't have the space for a bell or a bell tower, but you do have the space for speakers and a small item that's the size of a computer or an iPad, whatnot, and you can program them. They'll play music, they play tolls, they play taps, they play whatever you want it to do. So it's really a great alternative to having to have 10 bells or 12 bells or, you know, a full carillon of 50 bells to do what you want to do. So these are the models of what we offer today. There are 3 Verdin carillons. There's a Sonata, an Adagio, and a Supreme. We also, the big box on the bottom is a Schomrich carillon. They were a competitor out of Pennsylvania. They started in the 1930s. We bought their assets when they closed up shop in 2014. But there are lots of customers who like their sound of bells. They offer different bell voices than what we offer in ours. So we chose to keep their company running and keep their name out there. So we still have a line called the Schomrich G5. So, and if I can get these to work. This is a different bell voice. So that just gives you an idea of a couple different things that you can do with them. And all of those songs can be in the same instrument. So just because one bell sounds different than the other doesn't mean you have to have the Sonata to have them all sound this way or the Adagio to have them all sound this way. You can change whatever way you want it to sound. They hook up to church organs. You can play them inside the church along with your hymns that are playing, and you can have bells play behind them. It's amazing the things that you can do with them. A lot of universities add their fight songs to it, or you can use them as a campus alert, different ones. They all do different things depending on what your level of necessity is, but if you need a campus alert system to be able to tell people where they're going or what's going on, you can do that through the carillon system. So it's not just music. You can use it for all kinds of things. So. Street clocks, post clocks, golf course clocks, whatever you want to call them. This is our big seller right now. This is what everybody wants. They go in backyards, they go in front yards, they go in a municipality. We've put them in front of churches. They're everywhere. They're in front of schools. The blue ones at St. Ursula on the east side. So firehouses, country clubs. You can have them two-sided, four-sided, different colors, heights, whatever you want it. You know, there's about, I think, 12 models that we offer. And so it's a statement piece. It's a great spot to mark your community or to have for a town center or, you know, the lady called today and asked to put one in her backyard. So we're going to see if we can put one in her backyard. Our very first street clock installation is Flanagan's Landing. which is over there on the left. Which that one has sadly disappeared to time. We think it's somewhere over in Kentucky when Flanagan's closed down there on 2nd Street. Whoever the owner was of the bar at that time took it over across the river. We're not quite sure where it went to, but we know that's our very first street clock installation. There is one down there though in that same vicinity now at Smale Park. It's a gray one. It's for Mr. Castellini, so it's got their name on it. To honor their produce facilities that were down there too. So the University of Indiana contacted us about 15 years ago or more. Theirs are all red. There's 4 or 5 of those across campus. They play music out of them. So if you get a clock that's big enough, there's speakers inside the clock head, so you can play the Caroline music to come out of the clocks. And then this one down here on the right, that's at the Glendale Lyceum. That went in last year. And that is my very first sale for a clock. So, a couple other examples out on some golf courses. Just the idea of, they'll put them on their first tee, their putting greens, wherever. But they're a really beautiful piece, and you can put logos on them. You can have whatever color you want them to be. You can have your name across the top of them. There's all kinds of options. Other option there is bell and clock towers. We can build the tower itself. We don't do brick or masonry, but we can do a steel tower for you if you want. So the one on the right here, that's up in Fort Wayne, their genealogy, their big library up there, where you can do all of your research. It's got the Rotary did that one, and it has a beautiful copper globe underneath it. You can use these as signage for your company, that Bentonbauer Homes in Texas. That's all that is. That's signage for their company down there. So, some other examples of some different ones that we've done. Pulley Tower up at Miami University. If you've ever driven up there, you see all those. That's one of our towers too. Smaller one down at Sand Hills in Veterans Cemetery in North Carolina. These are towers that we do for churches. They're a little less ornate, a little simpler. St. Barbara's in Erlanger is on the right. We can do the Methodist church with their flag on the top. Just depends on what kind of design you want or how ornate you want it to be. So one of the other things we talked about was the Bell Foundry on wheels. You heard that a little earlier. That is the world's only traveling bell foundry. This came out of the Ohio Bicentennial. They decided, the Bicentennial Commission came to Verdin and said, we want to cast a bell for every county in Ohio. So that's 88 counties. And we said, okay, sure. Tell us when you want them, we'll get them delivered, whatever. No. We want to make one in each county as an event. And you can't do that. Nobody's ever done anything like that. They said, well, can you find a way to do it? Sure, we'll find a way to do it. So we built a trailer. We actually built 2. We have one that's actually the foundry, and then the other one carries all the materials on it. But we can travel anywhere in the continental United States and cast a bell on site. The bell can only be up to about 250 pounds, so it's not a big bell, but we can do it. And so they did. So they spent 2 years going around to all 88 counties in Ohio. Everybody's got a bell. Hamilton County's is down in front of the courthouse. I think Butler County's is in front of their courthouse. Most of them put them there, but some of them put them in front of a historical society or wherever it was for their county seat. So, but that takes 2 days to do. So you make the bell on the first day because it's small enough, it can cool quickly. And so then the second day they'll break it open, they'll polish it up, and they'll paint it up and make it look, beautiful, put it on a stand, and away they went to the next town. They have, sometimes this Bell Foundry on Wheels works in conjunction with what we call our Veterans Tower project. That was something that we developed too. I think we're up to maybe 8 or 9 of those. It is a tower to honor veterans. It gets escorted by the Patriot Guard, which is a motorcycle organization. They take it from state to state as it travels to where it needs to go. So it's a huge project where the tower is built here, and then we take it to the site. We erect the tower. We put build the bell on site and put it up the next day. So I've got a quick video to show you when we did the one in Evendale a few years ago.
So the Bell Foundry on Wheels was an idea we had where we could actually go take our foundry to different places around the country and actually create a memorial on site. So traditionally, bells have been cast in a controlled environment, inside foundries, where you don't have to deal with the rain, you don't have to deal with the weather elements. So it was really a concept born to get the community involved in the casting process as both a learning experience to show people what goes into creating a piece of art, and also a way to get the community involved in creating a memorial.
In 2000, the year 2000, I was on the Bicentennial Commission of the state of Ohio. And we went to Verdin Bell, and they devised a foundry on the back of a flatbed truck. And we went to 88 counties and we made bells. So for many years I thought, Village of Evendale, they need a tribute to not only veterans, but to the fire and police. Bell will be cast here on the grounds. Then the bell will be hoisted up into the tower forever.
Today we're going to escort a Veterans Police and Fire Memorial Tower up to Evendale. To a lot of people it's just a tower, but to us, if you look at what's on the face of the tower, it tells you to remember. It remembers all those that were fallen as Memorial Day comes up, not only for our veterans, but for the first responders, the police and fire that put their lives daily on the line, just like our veterans do.
The event was designed to last 2 days for the Ohio Bicentennial. That's the amount of time we had to be in this county and then move on to the next county.
We have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts who will pass the ingots one to the other to the gentleman on top who will drop them in the cauldron.
The casting process we use on the Bell Foundry on Wheels is a completely different process that was developed specifically for the Bell Foundry on Wheels. So we assembled the molds a couple hours ago, started the furnace, and for the last 2 hours, it's been melting the metal. We're gonna wait until the metal gets to about 1800 degrees. 1800 degrees is where we're gonna transfer the metal out of the ladle by dumping it into the mold. So the bell will be left to cool overnight. Tomorrow, we'll actually remove the bell from the mold. So the guys got here a couple hours ago and they've taken the flask apart. I think we're ready to have a couple of people come up and take some swings with a sledgehammer, try to get this mold opened up for us.
Again, I thank you all for coming today to dedicate the tribute tower to the veterans, to the police, and the fire personnel that keep this country safe every day.
The one thing that we found, though, that's interesting is the community involvement starts literally from the time we pull into the town to the time we leave.
I think everybody was kind of amazed at the process and taught them about it and what we went through to begin this process years ago. They really appreciate it.
It's just not steel and iron. It is actually a memorial to those that did give their lives.
We want the public to know how important it is to honor those that have served our nation. We've all put the uniform on. We took a pledge that we would protect the United States of America. So it's worth recognizing that sacrifice and giving those folks that honor, dignity, and respect that they earn.
So this will just show you some other ones that we've done. And if you notice, it's very similar to the tower that's at Green Hills, or not Green Hills, Green Township, because there's that one right there. So that was a project that we did.
I got to participate in swinging a sledgehammer and breaking the mold at Green Township.
Awesome.
And I still have a piece of the big sand mold and some of the metal that spilled off.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
got some piece of that in our archives.
Awesome. Wonderful. A couple other locations that we have them. The very first one was at Rising Sun. Our last one that we did was at Evendale. We also use that same tower design up in Westchester. They're not Veterans Towers, but they are two towers that are leading into their village or township square up there. So we can use the design for other projects, but a Veterans Tower specifically will say, take time to remember for our veterans. So just to kind of get through some other things that we do, because it's not enough just to do bells and clocks, we got to do other stuff as well. So we decided to work on glockenspiels. We would repair figures, we put the mechanics in there, we'll do the music for them. Biggest one we worked on, or most noticeable one that we worked on is Main Strasse over in Covington, which does the Pied Piper. But I love the idea that we did one for Punxsutawney Phil. So the groundhog comes out of a tree. I have yet to see that one in person, but I think it would be kind of funny. And then if you've ever been to Pigeon Forge and you've been inside the Christmas place, that's the one down there. Wisconsin Dells has a big one. Kellogg has one up in Battle Creek. So we can work on those. We don't do a whole lot with these. They come in every so often. Kitchener, Ontario, which was, I think that one does Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. That was the last one we did, a repair of. So floral clocks, again, not something that we do on a regular basis. They come up every so often. We have not put one in probably over 20 years, but we maintain the ones that are there. These were really popular in the 70s and 80s. It's basically just a box in the ground with the mechanics. The hands come up and however you want to set up the clock. But like Kings Island, even the park, Curran Conservatory, thank you. They're down there, so couple options. But again, not something we do very often, but can still work on. We can do art with bells and clocks. We make music boxes. They're you crank them. And then you can see the little teeth go across the music box and play the tune. Those are outside our office. We did the Virginia Arts Festival. This is one where they put it on a trailer and the kids can come up and pull the handles on there and they can play the bells, and it's an interactive experience for them. They bring that out every year for their arts festival. Smale Foot Piano downtown at Smale Park. Mom, that one in the middle, that's Addie and Sophie jumping on the piano there. Yeah. So we put that in. This does come up out of the ground. So that was one of the biggest things when we were asked to do this project, was how to make sure that it wasn't destroyed by a flood. So all the bells are built high enough that we believe we will never have them go underneath water. And the piano pieces themselves are in like 4 big blocks, and they come up out of the ground. It's just a big metal well that sits there. And so we can pull those up, take them off, and put them to safety. And actually in 2018 we had to do that. So we took everything out of there. Within about 4 hours, I think we pulled it apart and got it up. And I think the next day it was flooded over. So it is, they turn that on usually in April, and then it goes back off around October just because of weather. They try to winterize it. So, but I'll give you an idea of how it sounds. When you step on each key, they light up. And if you know how to play the piano, then you can play the folk piano. You can get a couple of people on there. It's fun just to watch the kids jump on it down there at Smale Park and play whatever they want. But one of the other things we did to kind of wrap up here, so when you get to 175 years, you got to do something important, kind of mark the time. So we figured we should make a bell, and we decided to design it as a time capsule, essentially. And so this bell tells the story of our company. There are several panels on there, shows all of our accomplishments over the years. The top has a crown top on it, which means that it's decorative and looks like a crown sitting up there. And each point on there is a generation of ownership. This took almost a year, I think, to put together, from design time to assembly. Each piece on there, so if you see like the little V's, if you see the church, if you see the little beadwork, each piece on there is a piece of wax. That has to be cut by hand, then it has to be assembled on the mold, and then that has to be pressed into the sand in order to make that design. So that took months to put that together, and we had one guy who was doing all of that design work and putting all of that together. I'll show you the video of it being made here in a second. His name is Owen. He was incredible to do all of this. But when it was all said and done, it looked like that. And then, like I said, each generation is on the top, all of our milestones. And that's the finished product.
This year, in 2017, the Verdin Company is celebrating our 175-year anniversary. The company was started by my great-great-great-grandfather in 1842. As a part of the 175-year anniversary, we have created a 175-year anniversary bell. The bell is approximately 36 inches in diameter and weighs about 1,100 pounds.
The task had a lot of artistic license involved, so Tim approached me originally and he gave me really open-ended parameters. Like he said he wanted a timeline of the 175 years of the company. He wanted all the names of the Verdins to be included.
The anniversary bell tells the story of important milestones in Verdin Company history. For example, the first one is the very first documented installation we have. It was a tower clock installation at Old St. Mary's Church. The second milestone was in 1870 when Verdin created the first municipal tower clock installation right here in the city. The third milestone was in 1910 when Verdin invented the first electric clock winder. Before that, all clocks were run just with a pendulum and weights. In 1927, my great-grandfather invented the first electric way to ring a bell, which was our electric swinging bell ringer. In 1946 was our next major milestone where we created the first electronic carillon. In 1981, we bought and renovated St. Paul's Church downtown. Since 1981, that property has been our corporate headquarters. In 1999, we created the world's largest swinging bell, the World Peace Bell, which is installed in Newport, Kentucky. In 2003, we finished the last of our 88 bell castings that we did for the state of Ohio on our bell foundry on wheels. And lastly, in 2011, we moved from our manufacturing plant on Eastern Avenue, which we had been for over 50 years, to our current manufacturing facility on Kellogg Avenue.
I've been a Verdin employee for about 16 years now, and although that's a minuscule amount compared to how long they've been in business, it's pretty special to be able to be part of casting a bell of such significance.
The bell will ring for the first time on September 15th at our anniversary celebration. This is a very exciting year for the Verdin Company as we reflect on, our product innovations, our history, and the family that came before us that's led the company to the 175 years we're celebrating now.
So, as you can see, we went from fairly small company to not much more than what we had back then, over 100 years ago. So, it stayed a family business. They love having it as a family business, and hopefully it will continue for several generations to come. So, thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
How do you tune a bell to get to the right pitch?
How do you tune a bell? So you cast a normal bell. It has to be of a certain weight or size, depending on what you want. And then there's a machine that scrapes the inside of the bell. And depending on how far up from the mouth of the bell you go and how much metal you take out of it will determine the note and the sound. So it's a very fine process, and if you go too far, then you've ruined the note, and essentially that bell most likely would get melted back down and start all over again, or they'll figure out how to use it for something else. But yeah, there's, we don't do a whole lot of tuning. That's usually done in Europe. They're really good at it. They've been doing it for hundreds of years, longer than we have. So if we need a fine-tuned bell, a lot of times we have a partner company over there that we work with, and we will ask them to send us the bell. So.
Do bells go out of tune?
I mean, they could if somehow it's damaged inside, but not necessarily. It should, once it's cut the way it's supposed to be, it should continue to ring that same tone. So, yeah.
I'm going to follow up on that. Even in cold weather or hot weather doesn't change the tone a little bit?
No, it pretty much stays the same. So it doesn't like constrict and contract, move like wood would do, a wood floor or any of that kind of stuff. The bell pretty much stays the same sound. So, yes.
You have, you've got technicians, I guess, who go around and work on these electric the bells and all. So it's a company that does that.
Yeah, so we have technicians that we hire, and they live in all different states, and so then we'll contact them and say, hey, we've got 5 or 6 customers out here that need some work done, so we're going to set up a trip, and then those guys go and spend a week moving from place to place and doing all the work on it, and then they'll send the reports back to us, and we'll figure out if something needs to be replaced or changed on it. So, but yeah, I think there's about 8 salesmen and maybe 10 or 12 technicians across the country. So they have pretty big geographic areas that they cover. So. Yeah.
On 4th Street downtown, when the old McAlpin Company was there,
Yeah.
there was a clock tower in front of the old department store, and then it closed and went into condominiums. What happened to that clock?
That clock is out at Sharon Woods at the Heritage Village out there. Yeah, and it is not one of our clocks. I think that is a Brown or a Howard, but it is not one of ours. But we do maintain that. So Sharon Woods, the Heritage Village, is a customer of ours, so we'll go out there and do the repairs to it. But I believe that was before I started there, but I think we took it down and moved it out there, and then have continued to maintain it since.
It
So.
said the McAlpin Company at the top.
Mhm.
Is that still on there?
I don't know if it still says McAlpin's on it or not.
Yes, it does.
Okay. I haven't been out there to see it, so I don't know. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
One of your founders, Francis DeSales, it's interesting that that Big Joe, the church that's in, has got his name on it.
I know.
But not his bill.
It's not his bell. My understanding is that if you go back in time through Verdin genealogy records, if you look at them, they were very particular about naming their kids after saints. And it's either the saint that is on their birthday or around their christening date, but that's why you have Francis de Sales, Aloysius Nicholas, Innocent Theophilus, and then they got down to like Cecilia and Bob and Dave, and got a little easier as time went on. So, yeah. But anybody else have any other questions? Well, wonderful. If you need anything else, I'll be up here. Thank you all.
Great.